Sunday morning, October 17th, 2014, unfolded like countless others during hunting season for the Harper brothers. John Harper, 38, a mechanic at a Boise auto repair shop, was securing the last of his gear into the bed of his Ford Ranger pickup truck. Just a few feet away, his younger brother Matthew, 35, was meticulously inspecting their hunting rifles. Both men had grown up immersed in a household where hunting was a ritual, a seasonal rhythm passed down by their father. Every fall they would retreat into the vast wilderness of Montana to track elk, and this year was no different. John had married Sarah, an elementary school teacher, 3 years earlier, though the couple had not yet started a family. Matthew, on the other hand, lived alone in a modest apartment on the outskirts of Boise and worked part-time as a warehouse loader. The bond between the brothers was strong, unshaken by time or circumstance, and they often spent several days a week together. For them, hunting was not simply recreation, it was legacy, a shared silence passed down from father to sons. At 7 a.m., they pulled away from Boise on Highway 20. The route ahead was familiar, stretching through Missoula, Montana, to the edge of Flathead National Forest, where a long-established campsite awaited them near Holland Lake. The drive would span roughly 6 hours, and they intended to establish camp well before nightfall. In the truck were all the essentials: 2 tents, sleeping bags, canned food enough for a week, a portable stove, and 2 hunting rifles, along with the necessary moose hunting licenses. Their last confirmed sighting occurred at a gas station in Kalispell at approximately 2:00 in the afternoon. The clerk remembered them clearly, noting their purchase of a large supply of propane and extra flashlight batteries. John used his credit card to pay, while Matthew picked up coffee and sandwiches. They appeared in good spirits, even cheerful, remarking on how favorable the weather seemed for a successful hunt. From Kalispell, it was another 2 hours on a mountain road to the familiar clearing where they usually parked. The final 30 kilometers snaked through a narrow forest trail, a place where cell reception was notoriously weak, the kind of dead zone where time feels slower and the world more distant. John's final message to his wife came at 4:30 p.m., letting her know they had reached the turnoff onto the forest trail and would arrive soon. After that, all communication ceased. It wasn't until Tuesday that Sarah's concern solidified into dread. John had not shown up at work, nor had he responded to any of her calls. They had agreed he would call on Monday night, but the silence from his end was complete. When she reached out to Matthew's warehouse supervisor, she discovered that he too had failed to appear. That Tuesday evening, Sarah contacted the Boise police, but the response was procedural, advising her to wait another day. It was not uncommon, they said, for hunters to lose track of time, especially if things had gone well. But by Wednesday morning, urgency overtook routine, and a search party from the Flathead County Sheriff's Office was dispatched to Holland Lake. The road was dry, there were no signs of a vehicle accident. Then, roughly a kilometer from their usual parking location, searchers found the Harper brothers' Ford Ranger, parked neatly at the side of the trail. The truck was locked, the keys left on the front seat. Their gear, tents, sleeping bags, supplies, remained untouched in the truck bed. The hunting rifles were stored behind the back seat in a specialized case. Continuing half a kilometer into the forest, the search team located a site clearly used as a temporary camp. In a clearing beside a small stream, they found a fire pit, the ashes cool and carefully covered with earth. Nearby, empty tin cans and plastic water bottles were scattered. Nothing suggested a hasty departure. The scene had the quiet precision of a routine pack-up, yet one detail cast a deep shadow. The brothers had left all their identification and valuables behind. In the glove compartment were their driver's licenses, credit cards, and around $300 in cash. Their cell phones lay inside the truck, batteries completely drained. The last incoming calls were logged from Monday, attempts from Sarah trying to reach her husband. The search lasted 3 relentless weeks. 20 volunteers, trained dogs, and a Forest Service helicopter scoured the woods. They covered a 15-kilometer radius from the campsite, checking old trails and long-abandoned hunting cabins. Dogs picked up a scent at the camp but lost it near a rocky stretch where the terrain made tracking impossible. One team discovered another campfire site about 5 kilometers from the main camp, but it appeared older, at least a week so. Animal bones and homemade traps for small prey were present, though nothing linked definitively to the Harpers. Rangers speculated it was used by passing tourists, but no record supported that claim. As October ended, so did the search. Snowfall blanketed the mountains, the trails became treacherous, and temperatures plummeted. The sheriff officially declared the Harper brothers missing, and the case was handed off to the cold case unit. The official explanation leaned toward misadventure, that the brothers had gotten lost and succumbed to hypothermia. But Sarah couldn't accept that conclusion. She hired a private investigator and made repeated trips to Montana, coordinating volunteers for further searches. In spring 2015, after the snow thawed, the effort resumed, but nothing surfaced. It was as though the forest had simply absorbed them, leaving no sign, no footprint, not even a final breath caught in the wind. 3 years later, the insurance companies finally acknowledged the deaths, releasing compensation to their families. Over time, speculation multiplied. Some believed the men had been attacked by wildlife, bears perhaps, or mountain lions. Others thought they had gotten lost, their remains hidden in some unsearchable ravine. But darker theories emerged. Some whispered that they had stumbled upon something illicit, maybe a hidden drug operation or a smuggler's outpost. Life, meanwhile, pressed forward. Sarah remarried and moved out of state 2 years after their disappearance. The brothers' elderly parents bore their loss in silence, unable or unwilling to revisit the pain. The Harper brothers' disappearance was quietly added to the cold files, another case grown cold with time. Each year diminished the hope of uncovering the truth. The forest, vast and merciless, had given no answers, only more shadows. Then, on the morning of March 5, 2019, a bizarre and chilling event broke the stillness. At the Whitefish Police Department in Montana, a man in his 40s entered the station, his appearance shocking. He wore a filthy jacket and torn jeans. His body was gaunt, hair tangled into long mats, beard thick and untrimmed. Scars crisscrossed his hands and face, some of them recent. With eyes hollow and voice subdued, he told the desk sergeant his name was John Harper, and that he had been missing for the last 5 years. At first, the sergeant assumed this was another case of mistaken identity or mental illness. Over the years, there had been several false sightings of the Harper brothers, each one leading nowhere. But then the man began to recount, in exacting detail, the timeline of events, the date of their departure, their stop in Kalispell, private details known only to family. The sergeant quickly grasped the gravity of the situation. Flathead County authorities were alerted immediately, and a doctor was summoned for medical evaluation. Within 2 hours, investigators who had worked the original case arrived. John appeared deeply traumatized, bearing the signs of prolonged physical abuse. The examining doctor documented numerous scars, burn marks on his hands and back, and evidence of chronic malnutrition. He stood 5'11", but weighed barely 115 pounds, a staggering 44-pound loss. His teeth were in terrible condition, several missing entirely. For the first day, John remained largely silent, drinking water slowly, consuming food in cautious amounts. Loud sounds caused him to flinch violently, and his eyes constantly scanned the room, watchful, anxious. The attending psychologist recognized severe post-traumatic stress and advised delaying formal questioning. John's body trembled, even when still, and his breathing was shallow as if he had forgotten what safety felt like. It wasn't until the 3rd day that John finally agreed to recount what had happened. He said that on their first night at Holland Lake, after setting up camp and eating a modest dinner of canned food, he and Matthew fell asleep around 11 p.m. John awoke to the searing light of a flashlight in his face. Figures dressed in dark clothing and wearing masks surrounded their tent. Before he could cry out or alert his brother, someone shoved a bag over his head. He was bound with ropes and dragged through the forest. The path was brutal, over rocks, across streams, and it lasted for hours. Beside him, Matthew was being dragged as well, though neither of them was allowed to speak. Eventually, the bags were removed. They found themselves confined in a pit, 3 meters deep, covered with branches and boards. Inside, two other men sat in silence, their faces vacant, movements slow, as if time and torment had stripped them of reason. They did not respond to questions, their spirits clearly broken. John came to believe they had been held for a long time. One seemed barely out of his teens, maybe a student lost while hiking. The other appeared older, perhaps a fellow hunter or traveler. Their captors, John said, numbered 6 or 7. They operated from makeshift shelters deep within the forest. Their clothing was mismatched, mostly old military gear, and during strange ceremonies they wore grotesque masks fashioned from animal skins. Their leader, a man in his 50s with wild gray hair, called himself the Shepherd and demanded all others refer to him only by that name. Real identities were forbidden within the group. They moved like phantoms through the woods, disciplined, silent, and terrifying. John said these people believed themselves to be purified from the sins of civilization, living under their own severe and unyielding code. They survived entirely off the land, hunting and gathering, fashioning clothes from animal skins and rejecting modern conveniences almost entirely. Captives were not treated as equals, but as Nephites, beings who, in the group's view, required purification through brutal physical suffering and relentless spiritual trials. Every day began with deliberate starvation. Prisoners received only water and, on rare occasions, scraps of raw meat or bitter roots torn from the forest floor. They were compelled to take part in disturbing rituals, forced to stand motionless in pouring rain for hours, to stare into flames until they fainted, to cut their own flesh with jagged stones as offerings of pain and proof of humility. Those who defied these commands were punished swiftly, beaten with sticks, denied food for days at a time, and left exposed to the cold night air without shelter. The camp itself lay in a hidden pocket of wilderness among rocks and dense forest, about 20 kilometers from where the brothers had first pitched their own tent. It could be reached only on foot along obscure animal tracks known solely to the Group S members. Around its perimeter, homemade traps and tin can alarms were strung to signal any intruder's approach, echoing ominously through the woods when triggered. Matthew endured the captivity poorly, his spirit resisting even as his body weakened. He whispered escape plans to John, refusing to give up hope or submit to the strange ideology. A few months after their capture, he acted on his desperation. Seizing a moment when the guards were away hunting, he slipped into the trees, vanishing into the undergrowth like a shadow. For this act, the Shepherd, the group's grim leader, pronounced sentence. He declared Matthew a traitor to the true path, condemned to die as an example for others who might disobey. John could hardly speak of what followed, breaking down as he recounted it to investigators. In front of every member, including the captives, Matthew was tied to a tree. One by one, each sect member hurled stones at him, faces emotionless, as if duty had silenced empathy. John paused frequently as he told this, his hands trembling, sometimes crying outright. The violence had not been quick. It was slow, drawn out, meant to inflict not just death but agony. When Matthew finally fell silent, his body was carried to a marshy stretch of forest, the Shepherd intoning that the earth itself would absorb the offering and cleanse his spirit, allowing his soul to re-enter the cycle pure and free. After his brother's execution, John's survival instinct hardened. He understood that submission was his only chance. He obeyed every order, took part in every ritual without hesitation, even requesting additional tests to prove loyalty. He learned to mask his hatred, to bury emotion under a shell of forced obedience. Gradually, suspicion toward him eased. He was seen as broken, reformed, another soul brought into alignment with the Shepherd's vision. 3 years later, he was permitted to join hunting trips as a porter. He carried firewood, butchered carcasses, trudged alongside his captors with no chains but still no freedom. The group's hunting was primitive, mostly wild boar and deer, taken with homemade spears and traps. Only the 2 oldest members had guns, and their ammunition was scarce and hoarded with care. Then, in January 2019 came his moment. The group had cornered a massive boar in a narrow valley. Chaos erupted, shouts and blood and confusion unraveling the false order of their world. In that moment, John slipped away, diving into thick brush before anyone noticed. He had nothing with him. No food, no compass, no map. Just the will to run and the instinct to survive. For days he stumbled through wilderness, disoriented but driven, eating snow and scraping tree bark for sustenance. He navigated by stars, by sun, by the rhythm of the land, always moving away from the camp, heart hammering at every sound behind him. He slept in short bursts beneath fallen trees and pressed into hollow roots. By the fourth day, he stumbled onto a forest road, half frozen and delirious. A logging truck driver found him the following day, hauling timber toward Whitefish. Yet even free, John remained silent. Terror clung to him. He feared no one would believe such a story, or worse, that the cult would find him again. Their faces, their rituals, their chants echoed in his thoughts every time he closed his eyes. For weeks he wandered like a phantom, sleeping in abandoned buildings, scavenging scraps, never staying in one place. He barely spoke to anyone, jumping at footsteps, flinching from headlights. Gradually, reality pierced the haze. He was free. He could speak. He could be heard. But the decision to approach the police gnawed at him. Would they accuse him of complicity in his brother's death? Would they mock his account of a forest cult? Investigators approached his testimony with caution but did not dismiss it. Many elements aligned with known facts from the Harper's disappearance 5 years earlier. His physical state alone spoke volumes. Skin stretched over bone, scars etched like a map of torment. A medical examination confirmed many injuries were inflicted by crude instruments, consistent with his account. The depths of his malnutrition, the burns, the fractured fingers healed without splints, all corroborated captivity. A week after John emerged, the search for the hidden camp began. 40 officers, Forest Service rangers, and dog handlers swept the area he described. But 5 years had reshaped the terrain. Snow still lay deep across the mountains, erasing trails and landmarks. The air was sharp with cold and the forest was silent. For 2 weeks they found nothing but wind and shadow. Then, near a small lake hemmed by rock walls and thick forest, the dogs caught a scent. The site was nearly inaccessible, reachable only by a narrow footpath winding between boulders. Scattered across the area were remnants of primitive shelters made from branches and stones, silent echoes of the life John had described. The pit he had spoken of was there too, partially filled in but unmistakable. Investigators uncovered animal bones, fragments of clothing, and objects likely belonging to captives. Among them lay a chain with a pendant that Matthew's ex-wife instantly recognized, a gift she had given him years before. About 500 meters from the pit, they came upon what appeared to be the ritual ground. Large stones were arranged in a ring, like seats for an unholy congregation. In the center were layers of ash from countless fires and heaps of animal bones, burned and splintered. Some still bore the markings of crude carvings. The most grotesque discovery hung from surrounding trees, masks fashioned from skulls and animal skins, grotesque trophies of their rites. A kilometer away lay the marshy expanse where John had said Matthew's body was interred. The ground was treacherous, riddled with animal burrows and roots, slowing the search. Only after a month of digging with metal detectors did they find human remains 2 meters below. DNA confirmed the bones belonged to Matthew Harper. The condition of the skull matched John's account, killed by stones. Beside him were scraps of clothing and his hunting knife, the one he always carried. But the cult itself had vanished. The camp appeared deserted since winter, abandoned after John's escape. Investigators suspected they had relocated or dissolved. In nearby towns, they began asking about strangers, unwashed, secretive, buying supplies with cash or bartering with strange tokens. Locals were shown sketches, asked about missing food, unexplained campsites, odd behavior in remote cabins. The first break came in April in Libby, Montana. The local sheriff arrested a man caught stealing food. On him were a homemade knife and an amulet of animal claws identical to those found at the camp. He called himself Tom Hill, but records showed the real Tom Hill had died a decade earlier. At first he refused to speak. Eventually he admitted he had lived with a band of true believers in the forest. He named 2 others who had stayed after the camp broke apart, one a woman in her 40s working as a cleaner at a Kalispell motel, under an alias, the other hiding in an abandoned fisherman's hut near Flathead Lake. The capture of the shepherd proved far harder. His real name was Owen Frost, age 47. He had once served in the Army but was discharged for mental instability. He carried 2 prior convictions for assault and threats. For 15 years, he drifted from forest to forest across the western states, living like a ghost. In June, officers found him in an abandoned Idaho mine. He lived alone, surviving on roots and small animals snared in traps. His walls were covered in symbols, and the floor was scattered with bones and crude tools. During arrest, Frost fought back, stabbing a police officer with a sharpened wooden spear before being subdued. In his hideout, they found diaries filled with plans for a new community of the chosen, describing in detail the rituals of purification and punishment. The trial opened in January 2021. John Harper, gaunt but steadier now, took the stand. He gave harrowing testimony of his 5 years in captivity, identified all 3 defendants, and recounted his brother's death. Physical evidence from the camp, along with his medical records, supported every word. The courtroom was silent during his statements, jurors motionless, eyes fixed. The defense tried to cast the accused as mentally ill, unfit for full responsibility. But psychiatric evaluations concluded all 3 understood their actions and could control their behavior. During questioning, Frost displayed a sharp grasp of legal consequences, trying to shift blame onto subordinates rather than plead insanity. For 3 months, the courtroom listened. The jury convicted all 3 of kidnapping, unlawful imprisonment, and the murder of Matthew Harper. Owen Frost received life without parole. Tom Hill and Ann Morris were each sentenced to 30 years in prison. They showed no emotion at sentencing. Freedom did not bring John peace. He struggled to adapt, undergoing long therapy for post-traumatic stress. His ex-wife Sarah attended the trial, but their lives no longer aligned. Too much had passed between then and now. John relocated to another state, finding work on a small farm, living in deliberate seclusion, speaking little, trusting less. The Harper brothers' case became one of Montana's most infamous. It showed how easily people vanish in remote forests, how long outlaws can live unseen. In its aftermath, the Forest Service increased patrols of remote areas and instituted regular checks on abandoned structures, a quiet acknowledgement of the shadows that can grow in wilderness when no one is watching.